Well, Jay, I know you've been here. You're almost an institution here at Conscious Capitalism, but tell us what's happened since you were the keynote. I think you were a keynote speaker in 2019 here with Economics of Mutuality. And just for those who have not been introduced to Economics of Mutuality, it's a management innovation model and it's an investment innovation model that's really designed to create mutual value within the stakeholder ecosystem, not just value for shareholders. So there's a work that's been done for over 15 years, and I think you spoke about it, but maybe give us a little update on Economics of Mutuality.
No, thanks for asking. I did have the honor of speaking to this group in 2019, just before, up on this stage with this beautiful room full of couches, just before the COVID hit, actually. And there's just been a tremendous amount of advancements that have taken place in our world of the Economics of Mutuality since that time. Actually, when I spoke to this group in 2019, we were still part of the internal think tank of a company called Mars Incorporated, which is well known to this group, maker of M&Ms, amongst other things, and a very exciting place to work. And this internal think tank was allowed to spin out from Mars in August 2020 after we were able to convince the Mars family and the leadership of the company that actually this Economics of Mutuality approach to mutual value creation is bigger than one company, that it's actually something that also is a non-rival good, which you would understand as being more valuable to Mars if it was shared openly rather than just buried under too much intellectual property. So the Mars family actually was incredibly generous. They allowed us to move our whole unit outside into an independent, not-for-profit foundation that's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, that owns a for-profit Economics of Mutuality Solutions consultancy, but the consultancy, because it's owned by the nonprofit, has no shareholders. So the profit motive is kind of completely changed in that any profit that's generated by the solutions business actually has to be reinvested in the capability, or it has to move back to the nonprofit entity. And now we're actually doubling the size of this entity and the scope of it. And Gavin is a huge part of that because he's bringing in not only some incredible technical expertise to help us to start to create more automated solutions to rolling out this new approach to mutual value creation, but he's also stepping out of his role as the managing partner of his own private equity firm so that he can actually join us and start an Economics of Mutuality private equity firm on its own that also will be owned by a nonprofit, which is a second foundation that we're creating alongside the first. And really, for me, it's kind of a new wineskin for the new wine of Economics of Mutuality, because we can't operate in the old ways. And Gavin has a vision that I'm just going to ask you in a moment to share for how private equity could actually be, through the Economics of Mutuality, private equity actually could change the way capital is deployed and really put purpose at the center of everything, and yet still provide outsized returns. So if I could just ask Gavin for you to maybe comment on your vision for the private equity space, but even before that, maybe give a little bit more of your story, because I know this is very intriguing. It certainly is to me, and I never get tired of hearing of it. That you were, first you were in this world of theological seminary, and then you're in this world of investment, and then you go back into the world of theology, and then you leave again into the world of private equity. So how did you get introduced to Economics of Mutuality?
I usually introduce myself inauspiciously with I'm a two-time seminary dropout, which is a perfect entree into private equity, right? So. But in all candor, I grew up in a mill town in North Carolina, so I had a pretty limited worldview, and all I really wanted to do was be a pastor one day, and I wanted to do something good for the world. That's what was driving me. So I went to seminary, and not coming from any money, my wife and I were scraping around just trying to make ends meet for tuition. So I ended up, I was a temp executive assistant for Arthur Andersen Corporate Finance in the Boston office for a summer, just, Lotus notes answering and faxes. I was actually doing faxes back then, you see. But I showed up with a Kierkegaard book because I was reading, I was a dutiful theology student, and the managing partner walked by and said, "Who the hell reads Kierkegaard?" And the next thing I know, he has introduced me to folks, and I ended up getting an opportunity to learn some financial analyst training, and within 6 months I was in the analyst pool, became an associate, and I just, for whatever reason, I loved it, and it took. However, I was an investment banker in a technology practice, and it felt, to Jay's point, extremely opposite end of the spectrum of the things that I was thinking about wanting to do as a pastor or someone who wanted to make a meaningful contribution, to society and to the common good. And so that began my journey of wrestling with this, And so, by the way, when I started, I literally had never heard of Goldman Sachs. I didn't know what Goldman Sachs was. I'd never read a balance sheet, right? And then 2001 happened, and we all most of us had experienced 2001, and Anderson, lost the lawsuit to what became Accenture, and then the market crashed, and then, it was an abysmal time. And so I was like, you know what? I've got to get back to my roots. I'm going to go back to divinity school. So I go back to divinity school, and then during that process, my boss from Anderson called me and said, we're doing it again. Would you join me? And for some reason, the marketplace I couldn't let it go. So that took me on this journey of how could I reconcile my desire to do something in the marketplace with my desire to do something, for the common good. And so the only thing I could come up with for the longest period of time was just hey, you make your money and then you're philanthropic, right? That's the only thing. But it just felt disintegrated. It didn't feel connected to how the world ought to work. And so I literally went on a journey. I started reading Michael Porter, and I started reading all these things, and some things made a little more sense, but I couldn't quite reconcile how something just didn't feel like it fit. And then I met Jay in 2013 and read one of his articles around the Economics of Mutuality. And for me, it was like an epiphanal moment. So hold on a second. The operations of the business can actually do something for the common good and actually bring benefit and value to all the stakeholders. It's not just, hey, let's maximize shareholder value. That literally was ingrained into me when I became an investment banking analyst. Maybe that's not the lens. And then, so fast forward, and I was blessed enough to actually be able to form my own private equity group in 2016. We've raised money from family offices. It's gone extraordinarily well, but there's still something missing. And Jay and I reconnected as EOM was spinning out from Mars. And I thought, what an amazing story it would be to actually deploy capital based on the premise of an economics of mutuality, that when you raise capital, when you deploy capital, when you oversee operations, that's actually embedded into every portfolio company. Wouldn't that be a game changer? And so that began our journey, and now we are actually formally standing up the Economics of Mutuality Investment Group.
As we speak.
As we speak, that's right. So let's see, Jay, I had some additional questions for you. Remind us of what's changed, but maybe just give a little more insight of what the Economics of Mutuality is in its substance.
Sure, and I'm so happy always to come back to Austin. This is my third time in a row because there's so many people that I know now, and the faces are familiar, and it's so nice to know that we're all in this together in some way. But I also know that there are so many new people here as well that probably have never heard about Economics of Mutuality and only know Mars from the M&M's characters that go forward. So I just was going to give you a very, very brief top-line overview of kind of how this works practically, because we like to think of this as more about you only manage what you measure in business, and if you only manage one form of capital, it's financial capital, you're actually squandering the incredible value that comes with, and I promised myself I'm not going to say human capital, given the fact that Javon just convicted me on this issue. But I look at that space as really being about identifying what the true drivers of well-being are in the workplace and how important it is to know that so that you can start to craft interventions to address the things that are most important to your workforce, no matter what culture that company has. This community, what we call social capital at a community level, these are other forms of capital. This is measured in terms of trust, social cohesiveness, and the capacity to work collectively for the common good. And then there's sort of the natural resource piece of this, where companies tend to focus on what we would call a lagging indicator or an output metric, like carbon carbon footprint, which is all fine and good, but if you're building a management innovation, a business model innovation, you really need to kind of look more at leading indicators and what are the input metrics that actually account for the vast majority of natural resources that are utilized in any business activity, from the manufacture of a bag of M&Ms to a bag of rice to an automobile. There actually are some very simple and standard metrics that you can use, and you can start to work with these different forms of capital that are non-financial in nature. And we discovered actually that if you manage them with intentionality, if you know how to manage them, you know how to measure them, you know how to mobilize them, they actually are correlated very strongly with financial output, with both actually your top and your bottom line. So this kind of gives you some ingredients. It gives you an ability to unlock a new kind of value that enables you to start to remove the trade-off of profit to do some good for people and planet in ways that are really hard to scale because they're not profitable enough to be self-sustaining, which is the prerequisite to be scalable, which is the prerequisite to be transformational. So it all kind of starts with the building blocks of these non-financial forms of value, and we utilize these and expand the definition of performance for the companies that we work with. And we now work with more than a dozen companies in different sectors of the economy, from retail to banking to technology to fragrances and food and beverage with Mars. But really, when we start an Economics of Mutuality sort of program with a business, it's all about purpose. It all starts there. And purpose is such a wonderful thing when you start to really embrace it. There's an author who I love named C.S. Lewis, who said once that purpose is like turning a light on in a dark room. And you don't turn on a light in a dark room to stare at the light. And most companies tend to think about purpose as trying to get people to stare at the light by creating something inspirational that's not connected to your strategy, that's not connected to your incentive system. And really, the way we look at purpose for this approach is that we want to make it actionable, solving the problem of another and illuminating the pain points, the problems that are inherent in the ecosystem stakeholders that maybe we as a company can go out and help to create interventions to grow what's missing, to grow the trust that might be broken down in that ecosystem of stakeholders that's brought together around a sense of shared purpose rather than just around the company to extract value from the stakeholders. We want to co-create that value. We want to figure out how we can create those interventions to grow the missing forms of capital so that we can make much more performant the ecosystem of stakeholders in delivering what the company says its business purpose is. And then the last piece really is about what we call a mutual P&L. So your management accounts P&L tends to be purely financial in nature. And yet now that we know that these non-financial forms of value that companies always create or destroy to some degree in their business practices, that these are keys to unlocking more growth and earnings, actually, if you can figure out how, through new management practices, to intentionally grow those forms of capital rather than just destroy them. And what we need to do is to reflect the impact on social and I won't say human capital, so I don't want to call it that. Again, I really need to challenge my language here and rethink it as we go. But on the aspect of individual well-being in the workplace, and also on the natural resource aspect of this, and have it reflected on another line in the P&L, so you can start to have different kinds of conversations about your growth and earnings, taking into account, what is your mutual profit, and here's your financial profit, and maybe we should start thinking differently and making different decisions. And we find when we introduce this mutual profit line, it actually does cause changes of behavior in management. So I just want to leave it at that, and I want to ask Gavin if you could explain a little bit about how you want to take that, because that's part of a company transformation, and what is your vision for how to apply these same learnings to the process of investing?
So Catherine alluded a little bit to it as she made an introduction, and as you discussed about the mutual P&L, one of the things that we've envisioned here around Economics of Mutuality is how do you embed these things into an organization? I mentioned how you call capital is important, the type of LPs that you use, and what you communicate to those LPs is extraordinarily important. And so one of the things that we've been working on with respect to EOM is almost creating an ERP class visibility for those investments within the actual companies that you're investing in. We think that's really important. It's really good that ESG has created an investment category. That's helpful, but measurement has been a real has been a real sticking point. And at least what we're thinking of from a private equity point of view is if you're creating an ERP class, that the senior level executives are actually able to see what those investments are doing and how it meaningfully contributes to the ecosystem, that's at least a really good place to start. I'm not saying that's the end game, but it's back to you manage to what you measure. And so we're actually working within our own portfolio and actually within Mars to actually create these dashboards so senior leaders know how to invest into health and well-being for their people, and know how to invest in place, and we'll talk about place a little bit later in the social capital, and know how to care for the natural resources that are in their ecosystem. There's another word that Javon challenged us on language and maybe making some things too sterile. We talk about ecosystem, which I love that word, but sometimes I like to refer to it as a covenantal ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, like, once you make a commitment to someone coming into that ecosystem, that is a commitment. And how you care for those folks and how you care for the place that you are and how you care for the resources that are entrusted to you requires a mutual commitment. And that's the term, I like the word covenant there. Additionally, we are, Economics of Mutuality created something this past year called the Mutual Value Initiative. The Mutual Value Initiative is a big data tool that actually goes through various sectors and prioritizes like meaningful challenges within those sectors. Well, what does that mean? So we could actually get visibility to the things that are the most impactful. So I'm going to talk shamelessly like a private equity guy for a second, okay? So that allows me to almost create like an S1, driven by impact though, right? If I know that this is the most meaningful impact I can make in that sector, then I start to put an investment thesis around that impact. That means I can actually go to LPs, raise that capital based on that impact, and then the MVI, the Mutual Value Initiative, allows us to do M&A screening within that sector. Then I identify acquisition opportunities. It went so far in this process it allowed us to actually create a merger opportunity that we're currently working on, to actually put two companies together that were more powerful together to address those prioritized impacts. So it actually started forming strategy from a capital deployment point of view, and then we use the Economics of Mutuality literally as an underwriting principle. So we take the four areas of people and place and planet and financial due diligence, and we do that in the underwriting process as we're going through an M&A process. So that's how we've envisioned it. And then on the ongoing basis, we can go back to that dashboard so LPs can actually go, these are the investments that are being made into emotional health and well-being of the folks. These are the investments that are being made socially and in the place that the businesses are operating. So the premise is give the LPs visibility, but also consistently operate and report on those investments and those other forms of capital.
No, thank you for that. I was also thinking back to just something maybe more simple. That when Catherine mentioned the book that we wrote in the very beginning of this journey, it was the first book on the economics of mutuality. We were struggling with what to call it, and then it sort of came to us that the title should be "Completing Capitalism: Heal Business to Heal the World." And the completing capitalism piece was, I think, really important. And what I've discovered in talking to in this very increasingly divided kind of culture that we live in today, where people have almost a hostile point of view between left and right on economics and on business and on culture and on everything else, that we found that this term completing capitalism was very disarming, and it actually helped us to raise the conversation above all of this division. And I find that when I talk to people on the left and they hear that this is about creating a more complete form of capitalism, they say, okay, well, you recognize then that it's incomplete and that it leaves people out and that there's problems with it. We say, well, yeah, and we can become more complete by enlarging the definition of performance to include all the forms of value that are available to a business, and not just your financial monetization of everything, of people, planet, place, and so forth. And when I talk to people on the right, they say, oh, okay, so you're not attacking capitalism, you're just saying it can be even better if we make it more contextual for where we are in the global economy. And so I kind of love that, but I'm also reminded of the fact that sometimes when I talk about this topic, it could sound like, hey, this is a really clever new way to make more money. And actually, that's not how I see it at all. I look at this as kind of shifting the discussion inside business from just trying to, if you want to have for yourself and your shareholders, you need to take from others. You need to extract as much value as you can from your ecosystem of stakeholders, to a point of view that actually it's better to give than to receive, in a sense, because if you look at your ecosystem stakeholders and that are grouped around this sense of shared purpose of the business activity, then you start to think about where are they deficient, what are their pain points, what are their problems, and as a business leader, we can now say, okay, we can create some interventions, just 2 or 3 maybe, within an ecosystem of stakeholders to help heal. Healing is what this is really about. Healing the broken relationship between business and the planet, healing the broken relationship between business and people. And when we start to operate this way, it's almost as though, like if you had a sports team and every member of the sports team was suffering from some sort of an injury, and you use the different forms of capital that are non-financial in nature to diagnose the pain points. So if it's a breakdown of trust, that has to do with social capital. If it's something that's related to too much destruction of the environment, that is a natural capital pain point. And this leads us to really understand what interventions are necessary to help grow the form of capital that's missing that will heal that pain point. And then suddenly, when you get this healing effect, your whole team of stakeholders, your ecosystem of stakeholders, becomes incredibly performant, and we start to see outsized returns that are not only measurable in financial terms, but also are holistic in nature, addressing society and the environment. And it's like it's a win-win-win for everyone. So that's kind of where I wanted to take us.
And one thing I also just wanted to highlight in this, when you're we're either a part of a multinational corporation or investment grade investment, you're talking about capital to people who already have a lot of capital, right? So when you go to a family office or you go to an investor, they want to wake up and write checks that are $15, $20, $25 million big. Well, that's great, and it's wonderful that we're investing that kind of capital into business operations that actually do care about the well-being of employees, about the social capital of the place that you're in. That's all very good. However, that doesn't address the needs of getting access to capital of people who don't have access to capital. So the reason that that we've had the investment group, the private equity investment group, owned by a nonprofit, is the majority of that GP interest goes actually back to the foundation. So the foundation can recycle the returns back into capital opportunities for local entrepreneurs that would never ever see the opportunity for capital. We invested I live in DC, and in a Baltimore entrepreneur who was a previously convicted felon. I'll tell you, he makes me look lazy and is an amazing entrepreneur. He works all the time. He ultimately ended up creating an opportunity of where he won the RFP for the city of Baltimore landscaping and for Camden Yards. The guy from prison to this, he goes to a bank and can't get a working capital loan because he has to check a box that says he was previously convicted. So we used returns from our proceeds to provide a working capital access loan to him, and the guy was able to scale his business. The impact that not only had on him, but on that community of the people he hires, that's some of the phenomena that we think are absolutely critically important. So we've got to actually connect the global economy back to a local economy for us to really achieve the healing that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And that's one of the things we want to do at scale by having a nonprofit foundation own this private equity company, because we can actually use some of the proceeds from that private equity company to move dividends up into financing this bridging capital capability for those that don't have access to finance. So thank you very much to Abby, especially for inviting us here today and allowing us some time to share with you. And the rest of the Conscious Capital team, we just love all of you, and we just love being here with you. So thank you for
thank you so much.
Your attention.